Buenos dias, Mark, and thank you for joining us today at Business Spotlight Series. Today, I am excited to introduce Mark Scott, co-founder of Bella and Duke, a pet wellness business. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, Javi, for having me on today.
It's a real pleasure. You've got a very interesting profile, and we thought you will be a great person to interview today and share your journey with us. Now, my first question is, can you tell us a little bit, what is Bella about?
So Bella and Duke, it was created out of like a lot of things, a heartbreak, losing pets very early on, under the age of 10. Me and a friend, we had 4 dogs and 3 of them got cancer under the age of 10. And I'd already been on my own health journey and improving my own health. And I noticed what a massive difference eating good, clean food made to me. And I was just shocked that these 3 dogs got cancer under the age of 10. I'm like, this is just bonkers. And then I realized I've not looked at their pet food. I've not looked at the side of it and the ingredients. And I started looking at it, at the dry dog food, which is called kibble in the industry. And I was just like, I can't believe I never looked at this. Why is all these crappy ingredients in this food? And I just felt so like pissed off, to be fair, that this was going on, and it's going on and known well in the industry, and the medical profession was backing it. I'm just like, this is absolutely bonkers. So I just had this drive in me to, what, I've got loads of years of experience of running businesses. This is something I'm incredibly passionate about. And I think I need to go out there and start a business and change the pet food industry. And that was 8 years ago.
Wow. Are there any statistics of pets that have died because of malnutrition?
There is, but I wouldn't know off the top of my head, but there's a lot. I mean, that's the problem, is you can fill yourself with calories, but are you getting the right nutrition? And we're seeing that in the human world as well, where, the obesity's going through the roof, heart disease, cholesterol, all these things. And it's no better in the pet food. In many ways, it's worse. I love Jeremy Clarkson's Farm. I don't know if you've seen that one, have you?
No.
Yeah, his farm show on Amazon. But they often talk about the crops not being good for human, but it's fine for animal feed. And
Yeah.
you go, okay, well, we've got to eat those animals, or we got to look after those animals.
The food chain, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not what we eat; it's what we eats. It's just as important. And it's just so disappointing that they allow that crappy ingredients to go in our
Yeah,
pets.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the massively on the rise. Vet bills are on the rise. All these things are on the rise. Some of it's down to breeds, so it's not just food related. We do a lot of, unfortunately, some of the sickest types of breeds are one of the most popular, like
Yes.
French bulls and stuff like that, Frenchies.
Okay.
So there's a bit of that in it as well. But I definitely think, yes, like the human world, there's chronic diseases on the increase, and most of it diet related or stress related.
So the business was born because a number of pets died of cancer, and then that made you think, why did that happen? And you did your research. Say, well, I want to solve this problem.
Yeah. So
Now you
so
are,
my so my background was I was running 6 businesses about 9 years ago, and I completely burnt out. I couldn't sleep. I was 17 and a half stone. I was really good at drinking, amazing at smoking, and all these things. And I just felt really bad. And then I heard of this phrase, I don't know if you heard of it, called biohackers. And there were all these successful people in the Bay, in San Francisco, in America. They were all super successful, but ill. And they made the money, but at the cost of their health. And then they started going, oh, well, how can I hack my body and mind for best performance? And I started following these guys and girls, and then started to understand nutrition and how you can track your body better, and the science and supplements. And I just felt like I was 20 again. When you wake up and you got that buzz again, and you're like, oh, I'm excited, and
wow.
got that energy. I hadn't had that for years because I'd been eating crap. I'd been working all the time, haven't taken time out. And it was that aha moment. I went, you know what? If this is happening to me, what's happening to our pets, but also what's happening to other people? And I wanted to show that if you feed your pet right, that maybe if we fed our kids right, they would do better, full
Yeah.
stop.
Yes.
because they've got everything against them. They've got so much. I know I've gone off on a tangent. They've got iPhones, smartphones, all these things with the poor diets, and it's even worse in America. We just went to America for a holiday last month, and you couldn't get healthy food. It was so difficult. Like you couldn't even get nuts without stuff being sprayed on it. And I'm like, this is absolutely bonkers. So when you get that feeling in your chest and your heart that just feels so wrong, for me, it's like it's really important that I take that energy and I transform it into something positive and action it.
It's so important to listen to your body and also to your mind and your emotions. There is a friend of mine who is a sophrologist. What the hell is sophrology? Well, it's about the equilibrium of body, mind, and emotions. Very, very interesting. So you kind of, how did you come up with the name of Bella and Duke?
Okay. Well, this is really important. So I've run many businesses, some better than others. Some I've exited, some have gone completely Pete Tong wrong. So when I started Bella and Duke, it's the first time I said, okay, what's the goal of Bella and Duke? Where do we want to be in 3 years' time? So we set this target. It was an ambitious target. We said, we want to build a business that's valued at 50 million. Okay. If we want to build a business that's valued at 50 million, what do we need to do? So we worked backwards in 3 years ago. We need to recruit this amount of people, et cetera, et cetera. So I knew tomorrow what I had to recruit in order to hit the 50 million valuation. Now, the reason I bring that up, because you said about the name, when you think of a business that you're not emotionally tied to, like it's not the Mark show, everything's different. So I said, okay, well, the name, well, let's choose the most common names of people calling their cats and dogs. It was as simple as that. Yeah, because I'm like, the goal is to get the business to grow and be a valuable business that people buy into and want to put their pets on the best food. So we chose the two names that sounded good together. One was a cat name, one was a dog name. And that's where Bella and Duke came from, pure that. But that's because we had this very clear vision of the business and where we wanted to be. And like I say, it wasn't the Mark and Tony show. Tony was my co-founder as well.
So I guess when people hear Bella and Duke, they think of pets.
They do, and they go, oh, my dog's called Bella or my cat's called Duke. And you go, no surprise.
Amazing. Didn't know that. Very interesting. Great. So in your journey, well, let's go back. When you were at school, was running a business even pictured in your life, or how do you end up running so many businesses?
Well, before this call, I just chatted with you and said I just did an ADHD and dyslexic test at the age of 50. And I said to people, I'm going to do a test because I think I might have it. And they're like, everyone's looking at me like, what, you didn't know you had it? And it's interesting. And I was chatting to the lady who was doing my test, and we were talking about why I am the person I am. And fortunately, I didn't do good at school. I just didn't get it. I couldn't read very well. I just found it hard work. It just wasn't geared towards me. No one picked up that I had this. So what that means is that I didn't get one GCSE at school because I just couldn't consume the information the way they were presenting it to me. So in effect, I had nothing to lose by creating my own story, by creating my own journey. And I was like Rocky, with Sylvester Stallone. He tried to get a main role and he couldn't get a main role. So he went, stuff it, I'll write my own film and star in that. And I was the same. So in many ways, it was a blessing because had I been, had that normal brain that most people have, then I think I would have studied and I would have gone to university. And then I would have felt like I'd have to follow the normal career path of everyone else. But I had nothing to lose. So I think that was the opportunity that was presented to me. The reason I only tested myself last week is not because I wanted to have an excuse, but it was to allow me to go, actually, Mark, you're not thick. You just see life very differently to others. You just very different. You have a different skill set. And actually, it's been a real benefit for me because there's so many people who are skilled and academically bright, but they're scared, witless to take the gamble or to look out and look at the bigger picture. They're too busy in the detail to see the trends, to see the opportunities. So those people tend to work for people who are the bigger thinkers, who are that way mentally, and that's what my aha moments have been. So yeah, it was a blessing that I didn't do great at school, and then computers came along, and that was a game changer for me. And actually, ChatGPT has stepped it up again for me. It's like my own personal assistant who can just check my English,
Yeah. I
which
saw
has been
your
amazing.
post on the, you tell ChatGPT about your life, and
Yeah,
then it projects what your life will be like. And then I noticed that you didn't like one aspect of it, being in a suit and a tie. I said, that's not Mark. And then you fed that by, look, I'm not into jackets and ties. And then it put cats instead, right?
yeah, exactly. And people went, remember, you are a cat slave. You're not a dog parent anymore. So, yeah, you're right. And it was scary. I don't know if you've played around it, have you? But it's scary how much information that chat and all these AIs are gathering about you, which we openly give to them, and go, okay, show me where I'm going to be in the future based on my past. And it's quite freaky. I mean, what it showed me, I'm like, wow, that's not far off.
If you don't like it, you start tweaking it. You give all the
Yeah,
pieces of information. Oh, that's the one I like. Well, then go
yeah,
for it now.
yeah. Set your goal on the picture you want to be. I bet you there's a whole post about that.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
do you want to be in 10 years' time? What does it look like? What does chat want to say about you in 10 years' time? They used to say that though. When you would die, what would be on your headstone? You
Yes,
could say, what do you want to be on your chat GVT
yes.
image in 5 years' time?
Yeah, I think it was Stephen Covey on Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. He said, imagine your funeral and you invite people to your funeral. Who's going to be there? What are they going to say about you? Well,
Yeah,
start
absolutely.
behaving that way.
Yeah, and
Very true.
he had millions of crap dad jokes. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Mark, tell us, I mean, you've run multiple businesses. What is one of the biggest challenges you had to face in your journey as an
uh,
entrepreneur?
Ego.
Sorry?
Ego.
Ego, very interesting.
Yeah. So when I realized that the problem, I started off doing door-to-door sales. So when I finished college, I had to get a summer job. Long story short, I was really good at doing sales door to door, but I was even better at teaching other people how to do it. And that was my aha moment that no matter how good you are, if you can teach other people, if I can teach other two people, I can get 16 hours in that same day, in effect.
Correct.
But the problem is, it always relied on me going out there and showing the person how to sell. So they come back and go, nobody wants to buy a calculator today or a toy or a telephone. I go, no, they do. You're just doing it wrong. And then I would go out and show them how to do it and kick ass. I still took that mentality when I was trying to scale a company. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. No one else can do it later. And that, I think, was my biggest block of, rather than me trying to do it and have all the answers, actually just recruit really smart people and let them do it. And they may not always get there right, and there might be 80% of you, but you know what? That's still better than
Correct.
you doing that and not focusing on the other bits.
Correct.
So I think that was my big aha moment after all these years is get my ego out of the way. What is the goal? Where do you want to be? And let the ego be a servant rather than a master.
Yes.
And that was my fundamental change. And I continue to work on. I continue is that my ego kicking in here? Do I feel offended because with a childhood trauma, or it's taken me back to when I was 7 and a school teacher said this or that. So I'm always just checking in on why, and it often appears in your body somewhere. And the more attuned you become with that, the more you listen to your subconsciousness and you make better decisions by listening to that intuition. But you have to work through the process, and a lot of it's called shadow work. And it's the reason it's shadow work is your shadow's always there, and sometimes on the brightest day you can have the darkest shadow. But that's the bit sometimes we've got to work on. It's the subconscious part.
Very interesting. I heard somebody said years ago something I use when I need to when you have negative thoughts, to say to yourself, to tell your subconscious, you tell your subconscious 3 times, I am not my thoughts, I am not my thoughts, I am not my thoughts. That may sound silly, but you are saying something tangible to your subconscious. Okay.
Absolutely,
And anyway, so you just keep repeating that because it's true, we are
it
not our
is. Yeah,
thoughts and we need
yeah.
to
No,
choose. Yeah.
Absolutely. And your thoughts are just that. They're like clouds. They come and go, and you watch them, you observe them, you
Correct.
thank them. But you're absolutely right. I'm not my thoughts. And do I know it to be true is another phrase I like to do. Do I know it to be true?
Mm.
How many times have you had all these things happen in your life, but they never actually happened? You
Yes.
just
Yeah.
thought of it and you
Yeah.
spend all this time. I remember one person explained it like, if you're in a taxi and you're trying to get to the airport and you're in traffic jam, does it help you running through your head 50 times before you get to the airport? I'm going to have to leg it and I'm going to miss the. Is that going to help? No. So, just let it be.
Yeah.
Just go, you're going to
Yeah.
get there. You're
Yeah.
either going to get it or you're not going to get it.
Yes.
Not a problem. There's nothing
Yeah.
you do. And it's still hard. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, but you just keep practicing
It
that and
requires
breathe.
training. Yeah.
It
Um,
does.
you talked about listening to your subconscious. Now, when I look around me, people are we all live frantic lives, with so much to do and go, 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 do, and we forget about the being. And people, I don't think, many people don't spend time reflecting,
Mm,
meditating, listening, in their heads. And what was your journey on that? Because I mean, if you run multiple businesses, and you burnt out, I guess you were doing a lot of doing and not reflecting and what we just been talking about. How do you make that transition? Or how do you make
mm.
even aware of, hang on, I need to reflect and watch my thoughts and decide what life I want to live and how I want to live it?
Yeah, it's interesting, and that's part of I think with the biohacking when I started that was so when I gave up my businesses because I just said to my business, but I can't do this anymore, and I didn't want anything, and say I'd take it off me. And I decided to take a year out. This tree had actually fallen down in my front garden in a storm, and I went out with an axe every single day, and I went and chopped this tree up with my axe. And that was my form of meditation. And every day I just said, by the end of this tree, I'll know what I want to do next. But it's about passion and purpose rather than just trying to make money and buy a Porsche or whatever. And that time in the morning suddenly reset my whole nervous system. It allowed me to see trends going on, subconsciously pick up news, podcasts, whatever, and just listen to that. And I went, and that's what fed the Better and Duke opportunity was that I saw subscription business growing. I saw door-to-door sales growing in that category. I saw health and well-being being more and more important. I started connecting all these dots because I gave myself the space to do it. And ever since then, every morning's been the same for me. I get up, I have a coffee with my wife, we have a chat. I have, I put bulletproof coffee sometimes and all this kind of stuff. But I have my chat. I then go and do my exercise. So I do weights most days a week. I jump on my Peloton bike. But that allows me, if I don't do that, I'm angsty all day. And it's so important. So that sets me up to prioritize my day. So today I knew we were going to have a podcast. I was starting to think, what should we be talking about? Who's the market? Who we're going to be speaking to? What's going to interest them? So it just allows me to get really good. And I try not to now fill my day up with stuff. A bad day for me is lots of appointments. I'm just being a busy fool again. Because really, it's about that focus on the really important things. And it's really uncomfortable being not busy. It's like really uncomfortable, like so uncomfortable. Especially if you have ADHD, it's just like the worst thing in the world. But it allows you to really focus on what's critically important and what's just bullshit and just filling your time up. And again, that's the ego. It's just like my ego says I've got to be important, so I've got to fill my day up with lots of crap. And then you go, no, you don't. You just got to get that one thing done today, or those two things, and just nail it. And you
Yeah.
have moved ahead so far.
Yes. So you kind of were talking about a routine when you get up in the morning and talk to your wife over a cup of coffee and have a conversation, and then doing the exercise. And I hear this about routine shall set you free. If you have a routine,
Yeah.
yeah, you get
Well, you
things
can put your
done.
boundaries in place. Once you've got your boundaries in place, then you
Yes,
own your
correct.
place.
Otherwise, and for people with ADHD, it's even more important to have that routine, because otherwise
Yeah.
you are firing in all directions, and it's not
Yeah.
very efficient. The other thing was I love the mantra think, plan, act in that order. 3 words in that order. You do the thinking, and then the planning, and then the acting. And so many people, me included, sometimes we jump into the acting, the doing, getting
Yeah.
things done. And
I guess I'll caveat that a little bit because I see a lot of people doing the planning but never do the acting, so that because they're scared shitless of doing it. So it's a mix of both. And
no, it's
in
think,
terms of,
plan, act. It's the three of them.
yeah. As long as you're doing all three,
Yeah.
it's so I went on this guy called Dan Penner. He's a multi-billion-dollar man, and he coaches people. I don't know if you heard of him, but I was on his week course in Guthrie Castle, and he just kicked the crap out of us for basically a week. But he kept picking on me because he kept saying the difference between you, between Mark and the rest, is the rest of you will be doing spreadsheets and doing all this. Mark would have made 50 calls and found out more and learned so much in a week.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was true. And I went, that's the difference when these really smart people just get in their own way because they just want to plan. They want to get the logo just right. They just want to do this. And just go, no. You might even have the wrong product. You might be in the wrong category.
Yeah.
Do you want to spend 12 months of your life figuring out that with a nice, shiny logo? It's the classic.
Yes, yeah. I found two time management tools very, very useful for that. One is the default diary, which is you plan your week by category and you block the time in your diary to do exactly that. And the other one is the frog sheet, which is a term popularized by Brian Stacy, I think.
Right, yeah.
Do you have the Eat That Frog?
Eat the Frog.
Eat That Frog, that little book, 21 chapters, 21 golden nuggets. And
do the one thing you don't want to do straight away. You get it out of the way.
Yeah. I've got, for instance, I print out my default diary every day and I go through it, and it's amazing how much you get done. So no, brilliant.
Well, it keeps you on focus, doesn't it? It's like the next checkpoint.
Exactly.
I don't have to think about it. I don't have to waste my energy on stuff that I need to think about.
There's another mantra which I love, which is nature fills vacuum. What does that mean? If you don't fill your diary with things you want to do, other people will fill it for you.
Absolutely.
Or responding to emails. If you haven't got anything set, what do I do now? Oh, emails. And you do things which are not.
It was one of the happiest moments in my life, which was a game changer for me. I was in a real dark place. And I had to go to one of my self-catering properties and I had to build a fence. And I looked up from this fence, looking at this amazing view in Scotland, looking down the glen. And I went, I've never been this happy for a long time, focusing on one thing and one thing only. And that was it. I was just like making a fence, not the 10-minute. And I went, this is what it's like when you're in flow state. You've just got to focus on that one thing, and it felt brilliant.
Have you read the book The Power of Now?
Yes, yeah.
That's another cracking book, and that's what you're. So if you are building a fence, you are building a fence and nothing else, and you are present. How many people live in the past with remorse or pain, or in the future? That's what I want to do, but not in the present.
Well, that's the capitalistic market. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. The minute you take money from an investor, all you're going to be thinking about now is the future KPIs, cash flow, all this stuff. You're never present because you've got to think about hitting those targets. And that's today's model. And that's why everyone's so stressed. Because if you want to be stressed, think about the future.
Anxiety.
Anxiety and stress. If you want to be depressed, think about the past. You're absolutely right. So the trick is, how can you set some of your day just to be present today to balance that out? And if you're not doing that, you're either going to be really stressed out or you're going to be really depressed because of what's gone in the past.
That's why the mantra think, plan, act is so powerful, because you are planning for the future, but when you do the acting, you say, well, now I'm building the fence or cutting the tree because I know I'm going to do the KPIs on Friday at 10 o'clock, and I'm going to do it. So you've planned it, and now you just execute the one thing at a time. Yeah.
Absolutely. And golfers are great at this. Golfers will look at the flag and then they'll just look down for a place to point the club at a meter in front, because they know if they hit that, it's going to the flag. You don't need to keep looking at the flag all the time. You just got to look at a meter ahead.
That's exactly what my golf coach said to me last week.
I sent him a message.
That cost me 60 quid. So anyway. Brilliant. Okay, well, just to wrap up, do you have a book that you've read? I mean, we've mentioned a few here, but a book that you've read that had an impact in your life or helped you, or you think we could help the people watching this recording?
So I've got many books, Javier, and I think in every decade or where I was in my career, I had a certain book that really resonated with me. I'll give you a couple if that's okay. So
Brilliant.
This year, and I should have picked up the author's name, but it was The Courage to Be Disliked. I've listened to that book 7 times now.
The courage to be disliked. Yeah, it's somewhere there.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. And
yes,
why is it amazing? Because it's really about becoming your authentic self.
Yes.
And when you become your authentic self, the gift is you allow others to be their authentic self.
Yes.
And often we try and act like out in rather than in out, because we're worried that if we show our real selves, nobody's going to like me. They're not going to like me. But the other benefit of that is I often thought it's financial freedom I wanted. I wanted the nice things and stuff like that. But actually, what I've really always wanted my whole life is to be free of needing recognition. So recognition freedom. That if I do something, I don't care if someone says that's good or bad, because I want to do it, because I enjoy it. Not because society says I should, well, as long as it's not illegal. But, if I don't want to work 60 hours a week, if I only want to work 10 hours a week and I want to make income off, I shouldn't feel bad about that. I should feel good about that. So it's those sort of things.
Who coined the term? I like it. Recognition freedom.
Oh, that was me.
Wow, very good.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is now in recording, so it is Mark who came up with the term recognition freedom. There you go.
Yeah. The another one, which was I found really useful, was Never Split the Difference, which by Chris Voss. And he used to deal with terrorists and stuff like that. Correct. To try and get and just don't move and all. It's some useful, really useful. The 80-20 principle, again, we spoke a bit about that with Richard Koch. That's again about priority. Like, if there's one thing you got to get today, just get that one thing. And if it's eating the frog, eat that frog, get it done when you've got the energy. I love anything from Ryan Holiday, philosopher, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, How to Win Friends and Influence People, classic. But the two books at the start of my career that really massively moved me was the E-Myth, the entrepreneurial myth, why 95% of businesses fail. And a lot of that's about systemizing, and you've got the entrepreneur, the manager, and the administrator. All three hate each other, but you need all three. Michael Gerber and Rich Dad Poor Dad, Guy Kawasaki, classic, and that's more about cash flow and building assets.
We are reading the same books, man. What
else you got in the back there? So
by the way, this hasn't been prepared. This all coming out for those watching this. Nothing prepared,
So that's some of the books, but I tend to go through when I'm really on it and I'm not having a break from education. I'll maybe get through 20, 30, 40, 50 books in a year easily. And some of them I listen to 2 or 3 times because I have to, because the way my brain is.
Yes. Do you listen to them or read them?
Listen. I can't read and absorb. I have to listen, and I have to be doing something. I can't just sit there and doing it. And I'm happy to go back and listen to it again. And because each time, I mean, that Courage to Be Disliked, 7 times I've listened to it, and 7 times I've got a different message.
There is another great book called The Morning Miracle. Miracle. And in that book, I read the phrase, it is better to read a great book a second time than a great book a first time. You get more from reading a book a second time than a new book a first time.
Was he the gentleman who had the accident and he knocked his head? Was that guy?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
A motorbike accident, I think. He was. And he built himself up. It's a great read for those who are looking for a routine in the morning, as you described 10 minutes ago. It's a brilliant book. If you're in a dark place, it's a
right. When you're writing those stories and stuff, it's really important that you have stories, because to the point, I remembered that book because I remembered the opening story. Yeah. And if you want people to remember stuff, get good at story telling
Yeah,
that's the
storyteller.
trick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just theory, you know.
Yeah. It's one ear, not the other.
Yeah. Brilliant. One final question. If you could spend a day in the life of, who would you love to spend a day with? You know, either somebody living or somebody from the past, history, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like Trumpy Boy because he says what he says, and I liked him even more when he was on Joe Rogan, because the point that Joe Rogan says is you can't sit with somebody for 3 hours and then blag it. Most people can blag 45 minutes, but free form. So no, I don't need to spend a day. I don't need to spend an hour with him. You know, Elon Musk people, they always surprise me. But I probably, there's so many amazing people out there. I just love anybody who's passionate about what they do. They could be into train spotting. If they're passionate about it, that's what I pick up on, and that's what I love.
Yes.
What I can't do, and if I could say the opposite of that for me is, I cannot stand being in places like where you're going out for a meal and everyone's corporate, and it's just the most shallowest, emptiest discussions ever. I go, get me out of here as soon as possible. I'd much rather hang out with people who are meaningful.
You know, partly why that is, and this is one of my takeaways amongst other things in today's interview with you, Mark, is the thing of being yourself, being oneself, because that's, we've been created to be ourselves, not somebody else. And there is so much fear of being yourself for what other people may say. And I love what you said about recognition freedom, being free from the desire of wanting to be recognized, and then we don't live our lives. There is a guy whose name I can never remember. He went to the Antarctica and had frostbite and did amazing things. And when I went to Edinburgh Airport, there was a flipboard with his face, with a hoodie on, and snow and bushy eyebrows, and you could light a match on his cheek. And the phrase was, "My greatest fear is not to live my life." Boom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. So to live your life, you have to be yourself. So thanks for sharing that, Mark. It's really, really profound.
And remember, everyone else is taken.
Again?
Everyone else is taken. So you've only got yourself to be.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's brilliant. Well, thanks a lot, Mark, for sharing your experience and being so candid with us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Javier. I appreciate being on.
Brilliant.